So this is how to reliably take videos of UAPs or UFOs in a new approach, and it works. Now, here's an example. Take a look at this little thing. Do you see that? Wait a second, let me see the button here. Did you see that it came down here? It'll play again. Watch again. This is another, see it right there? You see that? Now, you see that? It's like a cigar-shaped thing. Folks, I turned the cameras on after we figured out how to do this for the first time, and I recorded for 10 minutes. I found over 50 UFOs like this over my house. Now listen, folks, if you showed me, if you let me take my camera, put it out in front of this building, and for 10 minutes take a photograph, I could come in here and on this laptop show you. Why don't you see them? Because it's hard to see them. First of all, the disclosure movement is picking up steam. There's a need for photographic evidence that can be replicated on demand. Oh, not somebody took a picture in Bolivia and I think it might be. No, you have to be able to take it now and then show it and see that the UFOs are real. There has to be mainstream awareness. Tomorrow is my birthday. That's not important. Tomorrow, the 26th, is the day that there's open congressional hearings about the UFOs. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, Marco Rubio, they're all involved in all of this stuff. Marco Rubio, he has said things like, he stated that there's multiple whistleblowers that have very high clearances, I'm quoting, very high clearances in high positions within our government. That's Senator Marco Rubio. Some of these people still work in the government, and frankly, a lot of them are very fearful of their jobs, fearful of their clearances, fearful of their careers, and some, frankly, are fearful of harm coming to them. Understand these claims are things that are beyond sort of the realm of what any of us have ever dealt with. And Rubio expressed a concern that crash retrieval programs are being run by an internal military complex that is accountable to no one. This is Senator Marco Rubio. And the show starts tomorrow. Actually, it's been going on for the last few weeks. So if you don't know anything about it, you're not in the loop. So, and then there's Haim Ashed. Do you even know who Haim Ashed is? Haim Ashed is the director. He was the head, the CEO, top of the line of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years. And he's gone on record on print. Now, he thought he was going to get away with it because he did it in the Hebrew language. But it turned out to be that lots of people know Hebrew, and it got translated immediately into other language. He has said, this is the head of the CEO of the Israeli Space Directorate. He's also a former general for many years, and he's also currently a professor. He's claimed that there are written agreements that have been signed by the United States government, the Israeli, and some other governments. There is an agreement, this is quote, translated from Hebrew. There is an agreement between the US government and the aliens. They signed a contract with us to do experiments here. And he also said that there is a, quote, underground base in the depths of Mars. That's going to be important as we get later on into the presentation, housing both American astronauts and alien representatives. The aliens are demanding secrecy regarding their presence on Earth. Demanding secrecy. Okay, well, just bear with me a little bit, okay? So that's Haim Ashed, pretty good creds. Marco Rubio, Senator Chuck Schumer, head of the Senate, they're coming out gangbusters. What we really think is something is coming up soon, and they're trying to pull this show out as fast as they can to show that they've been trying to get the information out of the military, so it looks like it wasn't. We think something else is coming up. But what is happening tomorrow is a good beginning. Okay. Now, watch this. Did you see it right here? Do you see it? This is over my head. This is a different pass than what I showed you before. The thing was buzzing everywhere. Watch it again. Do you see it again? Now, you know how it's going click, 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 click like that? We have a show on farsightprime.com called Identified Flying Objects. And what we do is we have one of the lead air traffic control people in the entire country. He's worked as air traffic controller in airports all over, including Washington, D.C., the big international airport. For years, he's been a consultant for the FAA. He's published in major journals. Actually, to be quite honest, he's the one who told us how to take these photos. He came to us last year, showed us how to do it. We said, OK. And there's all types of questions you can ask about how someone like that came to us and showed us how to do it. but he came and gave us a presentation, okay? Now, there's bipartisan measure which aims to force the release of UFOs, backed by Chuck Schumer. Oh, by the way, this is the New York Times. They avoid the word UFO at all costs for decades. This is a first for them. So they at least have acknowledged that Chuck Schumer is investigating the release of UFO records. The Senate Majority Leader, he wants to create a review board to declassify all types of stuff. I don't know if they're going to be successful, but the point is they're trying to show that they're trying to get this information out. This is disclosure crunch time. It's important for the SSC to know that. Now watch this one, guys. Did you see that one shoot over like that? Watch it again. It'll come back. These are all different passes. Do you see it right there? Okay, okay. Okay, now, David Grush is a whistleblower that just came out. He was the one who was in charge of, he was an Air Force, a decorated Air Force and intelligence officer. He was the one in charge of the UAP investigation thing in the Pentagon, okay? And celebrated reporters who you should know about, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal, the New York Times big shot guy, okay? They've come out with major statements talking about this whole thing all over the place. The disclosure thing, military holding things back, there's a real secret space program, stuff like that. And again, I've talked about Marco Rubio. He's not only in the Senate, but he's vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And Haim Ashed, former general, professor, and head of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years. Okay, watch this one, folks. You see that? Now, you could say, well, this is all interesting, Courtney, but I don't know. How do you see those things? They're not trying to let you see them. Important to the SSE, and that's why I'm here to present. I'm trying to show you how you can see them. You have to become involved in reporting and analyzing the UFO, UAP phenomena more directly. To date, there is not a single article in the JSE that discusses real activity by real aliens. Congress is trying to say it. Marco Rubio is saying it. Chuck Schumer is saying it. Leslie Kean is saying it. Ralph Blumenthal of the New York Times is saying it. And there's not a single article in the entire JSE ever that talks about real aliens doing real things. You should all be looking in the mirror and saying, what happened? What happened? Where have we been? This is where all those ideas should have been popping for decades. Do you get the idea? You should be asking yourself, how could it possibly be? I'll answer the question in a minute. Look at that one. You see that jet? Here's the UFO, cigar shape. That jet looks like it's stationary. That jet's looking around 500–600 miles an hour. Now I'll tell you, Lincoln Lounsbury, our air traffic control guy, he knows how to do all this stuff. After all, that's his job. He's the one who estimates the speeds. You know what those speeds are for those UFOs? Typically, 20,000 miles an hour. If you're European, 32,000 kilometers per hour. Even if they were visible in visible light, which they are not, you couldn't see it. You wouldn't see it. They go from horizon to horizon in a very small fraction of a second. But this is it. So you can say, well, Courtney, how did you get a photograph of this? Well, that's the thing. What we did could not have been done before this year, because it was only last year that Panasonic, we used Panasonic cameras. That was only, we're a movie business, remember that? So Panasonic cameras came out with a new line called the GH6s, and they were the first ones that enabled us to do this. You get it? They're the first ones that enabled us to do this. So the Panasonic Lumix GH6 allows us, actually I'm going to change this to here. My camera is from there, and this angle would be better for me. Okay, the Panasonic GH6 can shoot at 120 frames per second. That's how come we could see those. You have to shoot at 120 frames a second. Normally, you're used to shooting if you're in Europe, you're used to shooting the PAL system, 25 frames a second. United States, 30 frames a second. You're not going to see anything but a dot on the screen. A dot. That's it. You're not going to see it. But at 125 frames a second, you can. Now, you can't see them when you're shooting, so you have to shoot wide angle. So when you're going to zoom in to see what it is, you've got to do it in post. That means while you're editing the footage, you have to do it then. So you have to shoot it in 4K or better. You can't shoot it in 1080p. 1080p is small. 4K is 4 times the size of that. And when you want to zoom in, when you're looking at it on your screen, you're looking at it in 1080p. When you want to zoom, but you don't want to capture it that, because if you want to zoom in, you want to be able to do something better. Now take a look at this one. Look at that thing. That thing's going 20,000 miles an hour. It's not a bug. Bugs don't go at 20,000 miles an hour. Also, I have done major research at Farsight, and I can tell you we have a certifiable result that you can publish anywhere. You can say my name on it. We have discovered that all bugs that fly have wings. Yes, they do. They have wings. And they flap their wings when they fly. Yes, we discovered it. Publish it. The point is, it's a joke, right? But the point is, none of the UFOs have wings, and they don't flap their wings. And they're going 20,000 miles an hour, and we actually show how you can actually do these estimations for this type of thing. So the point is, when they're doing all of that, you have to zoom in really close to see it, to see if it's a bug. You have to see if it has wings. And that's why you need to do 4K. So this is the sensor. That's the sensor for the GH6. Now, you see the color on that sensor? Every time you buy a camera, it has a piece of glass on top of the sensor that knocks out infrared, and it also knocks out ultraviolet. Unfortunately, fortunately, when you take pictures of normal stuff, that's what you want. You don't want infrared and ultraviolet to come in and mess up your picture. But the ET ships are all using stealth technology. They don't want you to see them. So they're going 20,000 miles an hour, and they can only be seen in infrared. You get that? They don't want you to see them. That should tell you something. They're up to no good, a lot of them. The point is, you have to have this converted to a full spectrum camera by getting that piece of glass cut out, or taken off, actually. And that's done by a company that we use called LifePixel, lifepixel.com. And we have to ship our cameras out. They take that piece of glass off of the camera, and then we have to have filters that go on top of the lens to let us dial into the infrared band that we want. And we typically use infrared bands that are the 830 nanometer band, which is deep black. You can't see anything. If you hold up the lens to it, you can't see anything. But infrared can get through. And we also use the 580, which is a little bit more of the visible light get through. But we use filters on top of the lens because we don't have one here. And that way we can tune in exactly the IR infrared band that we want. Now, watch this one. Do you see it here? It comes swooping in. Does everybody see it swoop in? That was over my house. It was like dive bombing. This is like watching Star Wars. What the heck is that thing? It's coming in and it's dive bombing right over my house. And so, and this is all within the first 10 minutes of shooting that I turned on the camera. Okay, is it repeating itself or not? Looks like it's not repeating itself. I'm just gonna keep on going rather than try to get back. I don't want to run out of time. That's why I'm talking fast. I'm a professor. I always talk, and I talk fast. So, basic capture facts. UFOs are rarely visible in visible light. Occasionally, don't put your money on it. Happens sometimes. UFOs are nearly all using stealth tech to hide their presence. Chaim Ashed said it's in the contract. They don't want anyone knowing they're here. The stealth tech is not perfect, and it can be largely evaded by properly configured infrared cameras, like that one right over there, taking a video recording of me. That's a full spectrum camera. And when I want infrared, I put a lens with a filter on top of it, and I can see the things as long as I'm shooting at 120 frames a second. Okay, take a look at this thing, folks. You see those lines? You'll see some more. Now, you're going to see a UFO shoot down as well. Here it's coming. I haven't seen the UFO shoot down. I'm seeing only the lines. Could be the way the... Okay, well, there. You see those UFOs here? So some of them are lines, and some of them are actually, there it is. Did you see it drop down? Okay. This is what remote viewing is really good for, if it's done well. And we always have verifiable elements. We never do stuff that's totally out there that doesn't have anything verifiable. We know something about the target. So our remote viewers went in to find out what that was. Always done under blind conditions. We don't touch anything front-loaded. They don't know anything about the project, anything about what's happening. They just go to, every single one of them does it without communicating with anybody else. They don't talk to each other. They don't do nothing. And part of the verifiable elements is do they all get the same stuff? And they do. These are the best remote viewers on the planet Earth. And they all go through a period of a year training full-time before they can even touch our projects. Okay, so these people are way beyond stuff that you've been talking about with regard to the military stuff. I'm sorry if the personalities of the military people are offended, but these people are better than anything you've ever seen before, and we've trained them ourselves. Okay, and the methods they use are derivative of the military methods, but we don't like the military methods because they're not structured enough for what we want to do. So and all of that, we even have all of our training stuff is available for free. So you can actually, it's not like you have to pay $4,000 if you want to know what we're doing. It's free. So anyway, that's this one. Now watch this here. The basic capture facts 2. UFOs are normally traveling at a speed of approximately 20,000 miles an hour, 32,000 kilometers a second. High frame rate cameras are required in order to video record ships moving at such speeds. Now, shooting at 4K or better is needed. The footage must be shot in standard mode. You cannot shoot in monochrome, and you cannot shoot in log footage. We've tried. Doesn't work. Visual adjustments are needed in post while you're editing the thing to reveal most of the UFOs. You have to apply certain LUTs, saturation, and stuff like that. So they're really trying to hide themselves, but we can see them. Okay, now you look at this thing. Look, it looks like it has a tail at the end, right? But now look, the thing is in the middle. Now it's in the beginning. The thing is rotating, folks. It's a disk. It has something coming out, and while it's traveling, it's actually rotating. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and I know I can get around this problem. Okay, now I'm going to go slideshow from current slide. Okay, now it'll hopefully repeat. Okay, see, so that's the thing. So now the thing that was in the tail is in the front. So this thing, as you can see it again, we had to zoom in a lot. That thing's traveling over 20,000 miles an hour. Does that mean 15 minutes to go? 15 minutes left. Okay, great. Okay? And I had to zoom in a lot. You can even see the pixels on it to zoom that thing in. That's why you have to shoot in 4K or better. If you're shooting in 1080p, it's just not going to work. Okay. UFOs are often present in huge numbers over major urban areas, such as Atlanta, Washington, D.C. during the daytime hours. They show up in large numbers for some reason at air shows. Like we went down to a Blue Angels air show in Pensacola. There was like hundreds. They must like air shows. I don't understand everything, okay? Okay, now watch this. This is a tumbling UFO. Now this is actually two. It's actually two UFOs that are sort of wrapping around. I don't understand the tech, but if you look closely, they're going to separate eventually, okay? It looks like it's just tumbling, 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 and it's over. This is really far zoomed in. You couldn't do this if you're doing 1080p, but if you look closely, you'll eventually see there's two things. There's not just one thing. And you see it separated a little, and you're going to see it separate a little bit more now. I'm following it around in post in the editing thing because it's zooming all over the sky. And every time it's going like a jerky motion, that's another frame at 120 frames a second. There, you see it break into two pieces there? There, you sort of break into two pieces again. It's actually two different disks, and they're like linked, and they're tumbling over each other. You see it break up quite a bit now as it's sort of doing. These configurations are, you see it breaking up clearly now? These configurations are weird. I don't understand what the tech is involved, but the ships don't fly with the same configurations. They're not equally present globally. I just got back from Africa. I was trying to shoot them in Kenya. I shot for 5 days. I got one UFO. They're not, I thought they were traveling so fast they can cross the country in like a second. 20,000 miles an hour is fast, folks. So I just assumed they'd be everywhere on the opposite side of the planet as well. So I went there to see. I got one UFO. So they're not everywhere universally. But over major cities and airports and things like that, major cities, Atlanta, Washington, D.C. is like Grand Central Station. Yes, the most protected airspace in the entire planet. From what? There's more UFOs over Washington, D.C. than you could count. So the point is, it's protected. That's a good question. What are they protecting? Okay, here's another. This is the Blue Angels show. Notice you don't see any UFOs. This is real time, real speed, Blue Angels, all right? You want to see what was there when we slow it down and zoom in? There it is. You see it? It looks like the Blue Angel jets are stationary. That's the UFO. That thing is going close to 20,000 miles an hour. It passed the Blue Angels jets. The Blue Angels jets in the first one covered the entire screen. It's coming down here. There it is again, starting there, okay? Let me see what happens if I... There it is. It's coming back. There it is. You see that again? That's a UFO. Look how stationary. It looks like those things are not even moving, the Blue Angels jets. But I showed you in real life, there's the Blue Angels jets in real time. Now that UFO was, it was there, but you couldn't see it. You can only see it when you slow it down, and it's all infrared. That's what you get when you get 120 frames a second. You can't see them otherwise. Make sure you every 5 minutes give me a warning mark if you can, okay? Okay, Farsight uses Adobe Premiere. The sequence is what you match. Inside the sequence, when you're using Adobe Premiere, you have to match the footage, you have to match the sequence properties with the footage so you get the full benefits of all the high frame rate and everything else. And then you have to do all types of adjustments afterwards. Now watch this, folks. It's going to come in from this side. Do you see it? Do you see it? And now it's going to dive down and tunnel into these trees. At that moment it's here. It's flying over the Pensacola Naval Air Station. I call this the tunneling UFO. You see it still here? In real time, that you couldn't see it. In real time, you couldn't, 10 minutes left. In real time, you couldn't even blink and see that. This thing is slowed down to 1/20th. That means if it was a 1-second video, I'd have to make it a 20-second video in order to be able to see this thing. In reality, this is a fraction of a second. Okay. Slowing down the footage is necessary. Scrubbing is different from rendering, which is what you do when you get your final thing. And locating the footage and the UFOs in the footage is a big deal. Take a look. You see all those dots? This is when the air show just started. They're all UFOs and they're over the Pensacola Air Station. Every single one of them. It's all slowed down. They're incredibly fast. You see them? You see the like orbs all over the place? Those aren't bugs. We had film going all over the place. There's nothing before. As soon as the air show started, they showed up. And they all came down and they all swooped down right onto the air base. Anyway, that's the kind of thing you get. Okay, different visual effects reveal different UFOs, and you need to be able to distinguish UFOs from bugs and birds. So 4K is important. You need to be able to zoom in. Here's 1080p. That's how you're going to broadcast your stuff. You have to shoot in 4K in order to be able to reduce things down into 1080p and still see it and still have clear resolution. Okay. Now here's another shot of this exact same thing in case you missed it. You see it? It's going around. It's coming around there. So this is one of those shots where I got one UFO separate. Otherwise, there's like hundreds out there at the same time. Okay. All flying bugs and birds have wings. Bugs and birds flap their wings. UFOs have no wings, and they do not flap wings. So zooming in post is absolutely needed. And you can't zoom in with the zoom lens because you can't see what you're shooting anyway. So you have to do it afterwards. Bugs can be avoided various ways. Winds during the daytime at the beach come inward and they blow all the bugs away from the beach. So the beach can be done as well. Shooting above the bug line, going to a parking deck, it's like really high, you're above the bug line. Winter is really great. December, January, February, and there's no bugs. Every UFO needs to be visually inspected up close, okay? You see this, another picture of another shot of the UFOs dropping down over the Pensacola Air Station. What? That's the type of stuff we're talking about. They're out there in enormous numbers. Okay, speed is a distinguishing characteristic. All of that was slowed down to 1/20th of the speed. They're all going like 20,000, 15,000 miles an hour. So speed is an incredible characteristic. We can use miles per hour, kilometers per hour, or body lengths per second. If you have visual elements, trees, and things like that visible, you can use miles per hour or kilometer per hour. Otherwise, it's body lengths per second, which doesn't require any type of external reference. A bit of history. Okay. All right. At this point, I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about what you need to be able to do. This is a project based on Mars that I tried to get published in the JSC. Daryl Bem was the associate editor. It went through a year-long review process with Daryl Bem and the editor-in-chief and the back and forth and revisions and everything. It finally got accepted. 10 days before it was supposed to come out. 10 days. 10 days. Typeset, everything done. It got pulled. Huh? I'm not going to go through the details of what happened, but it suddenly got pulled and said we had to send it out for review again. What? Okay. Okay. All right. The thing was there's a base on Mars. That's part of the underground base. There's a pipeline coming from it, and there's liquids coming out, and you can even see the shadow underneath it. Haim Shed has also said this base exists. Then you can say, okay, and there's another part of the base down there. All right, well, like, well, you know, what do you think? How do you know they're censoring it? If you go to Google Earth, they have a Mars option. You go to the exact same spot, that's what you see. Do you need a further explanation, folks? They're censoring the thing. It's been like this for decades. The point is, they don't want you to see that spot. That spot is the exact spot that I just showed you before. Okay? This is the article that I tried to publish. There are no articles on the JSC at all that have real aliens doing real things. This was going to be the first one ever. And now we have the whole disclosure movement going out over the whole country, and we don't have a single article that talks about it. This was going to be, and we were 10 days away from getting it actually published. We did publish it eventually, but I took the name of the Journal of Scientific Exploration off, and I put Farsight Press, and we published it ourselves. Okay? So you can still see it. And what I would like, oops, what happened to Haim Shed? And Haim Shed, that's the guy. He's been head of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years. He says there is such a base. How many minutes, Mark? Okay, good. I'm talking fast. If you go to our regular website, not our Farsight Prime streaming site, regular website, you can see, this is here. You will see here a couple things. Right at here, you see a link that says recording videos, how to record it. If you click on that, you'll get actual printed instructions for how to actually do it, all the various steps. But at the bottom of this homepage, you will see two links. One is remote viewing future with a tasking temporal outbounder. That was really important. That's the only article that ever appeared in the JSC with real remote viewers doing real things. But this is the article that I just showed you. So in my view, you should ask yourself, I'm not saying yes or no, I'm not answering it. You should ask yourself, did the peer review gatekeeper process work well? You should ask yourself, I would like you all to go and click on it. It's actually got much more visibility than it would have if it had come out in the JSC. If the JSC published it, maybe a few hundred people would have read it. At this point, tens of thousands of people have read it. And I am very appreciative of the typesetting, the formatting. Everything was perfect. So the only thing I had to do is change the name of the publication. So if you click on that, now if you click on this thing here, based on Mars, you'll see an updated video project of the actual same thing with our new viewers, okay? This is farsightprime.com. People pay $10 a month to be subscribers to it. This is the largest collection of real remote viewing projects that exists anywhere. And we also have projects on identifying UFOs, which is just like that, which has Lincoln Lounsbury in it and so on. This is the best remote viewers that exist. If you didn't even know that it existed, it's a good question to ask why. All right, strategies for control. Those who are going to debunk you are going to use fear, intimidation, and ridicule. They're going to come after you if you do this, but you need to do it. You need to actually have verifiable stuff like photos, videos. They're going to have dismissal of all interesting data and theories as technical glitches or crazy ideas, direct verbal and written public attacks. There's going to be meetings with select members of organizations pressing the flesh to stop the publication of data and the theories. There's going to be gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are attack vectors. They're places that if someone wants to control, they go after those people. Make a lot of noise that disrupts presentations that contain information that may interest organization members. That's what they do in order to stop you from doing it. You have to ask yourself, how could it be that there's no articles at all about real aliens doing real things in the JSC or the SSC stuff? You have to ask, how could it possibly be? This is where it should have been happening. Okay, this is who I am. But there's one last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to show you a little bit of history about how you're going to be attacked. Now, never, ever criticize someone who attacks you. Science is not something where you actually come up with an idea and people say, oh, that was so interesting. That's a Nobel Prize for sure. Oh, this is so great. That doesn't happen. Science is a gladiator sport. If you have an idea, you have to fight for it. And you're going to be attacked. If you're doing anything important, you're going to be attacked. And the person that attacks you is not a bad person. That's just what they do. And you have to be able to withstand it. Now, let me tell you a little bit about it. John Alexander, he's my nemesis in the SSC. He wrote a book, Reality Denied, and he was I was so grateful he actually detailed the things that he's been doing to me for a number of years. So I'm going to tell you, this is, and I'm not saying it because he's bad. This is just his opinions, and he can have these opinions. It's perfectly okay. But when you do it, I have to have 1 minute, so give me a note when 1 minute is there. When you actually just listen to how I got attacked, so that when you get attacked, you know it's okay. This is what he wrote on page 125 of his book, Reality Denied. A couple of glaring examples come from Courtney Brown and his Farsight Institute. Brown, a professor at Emory University, has given several presentations at the annual conventions of the Society for Scientific Exploration. At the June 2008 meeting at the University of Colorado, Brown proclaimed that according to his remote viewers, the Los Angeles airport, LAX, would be physically destroyed by December of that year. Now, some 9 years later, LAX is still up and running. In order to explain this obvious remote viewing failure, Brown informed that in a presentation the following year that the LAX, in fact, was destroyed, but it happened in a parallel universe. Listen, folks, we had this LAX experiment, which I did present here, was a great experiment. Experiments mean, by definition, you don't know what's going to happen. And you learn from that. We had another experiment that followed that from what we learned, and that experiment was a generalization of quantum mechanics, and that led to the article that I showed you before about using a temporal outbounder, that in fact there are multiple timelines. That's a theory of quantum mechanics called other worlds that was developed by Hugh Everett, who got his PhD under John Wheeler in 1957. And about 20–25% of mainstream physicists believe it now. And then, I'll be done in 1 minute. In June 2010, at another SSE conference, Brown claimed that they had evidence that the US military had an underground base on Mars. According to his remote viewers, this was an operational, give me 30 seconds. This was an operational facility, and the photographic evidence showed ejecta spewed forth from that location. In his talk, he stated, there are unregistered flights going out of Cape Canaveral all the time that never get recorded. That is utter nonsense. When there is a launch from Cape Kennedy, half of Florida is aware of it. Obviously, his people have no concept of logistical requirements to support an extraterrestrial base. While I take issue with scientists who fail to accept hard data, these examples are some of the reasons why they don't. I admit I was a peer reviewer who blocked his article on this topic that Brown submitted to the SSE's Journals of Scientific Exploration. Thank you, John Alexander. If you don't have someone to battle with, no one's going to listen to you. But folks, give me a break. Give me a break. This is what Google Earth does to the exact same spot. Is that a glitch? Is that a smudge? Doesn't look like it to me. And Haim Eshed, former head of the Israeli Space Directorate, says that there is such a base. I leave you with this. Fight when you have science. Start taking video recordings of UFOs and then present them here. And don't worry if you're attacked. If you're lucky, you'll be attacked by a strong person and you get to fight back. Thanks.
Let's thank Courtney.